Hello, boils and ghouls. Welcome to episode 163 of Dads from the Crypt. Today, I'm joined by Terrifier. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello. And Mondo from the Crypt. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
I use from the.
I really wanted to do the bit all the way. I should be just silent and make faces the entire time.
That doesn't really work for a podcast.
Yeah.
If Art,
Audio
if Art had
medium.
a podcast, I don't know if I'd listen. The honky noises.
We should give all of ourselves cool Terrifier names now. Could we start over again? Could we Jason Fire? I don't know. That doesn't work, right?
Yeah. Yeah, 2 J's. Stein of Fire. Oh, that works.
Stein of Fire. Yeah, I guess it sounds like the Steiner brothers, the wrestlers. And one of those guys is a homophobe, so at least one is guaranteed. He was at a wrestling convention and went in on a male to female transgender wrestler, and to the credit of the organization, they kicked him the fuck out. So good for him.
There we go.
Well, we're demonetized this week again.
Even wrestling organizations are too woke.
I'm just kidding. I don't think we're ever monetized, but
no, we're definitely not monetized. We try to give them our money and they say no sometimes, but anyways, but here we are. We're doing Terrifier 3 because it was Jody's birthday. And he wanted to go. It came out on the day of his birthday. So you did the double feature, right?
Yeah, I watched Terrifier 2 and Terrifier 3 back to back in the theater, and that is a 4.5 hour long experience. I'll talk more about that as we get into our review. It may have affected my viewing a little bit. By the time I was done, I was just tired. I'm like, oh man, more limbs flying.
How long was the intermission?
I mean, like enough time to go pee and refill my Coke. That's about it. Like maybe 5-10 minutes. Yeah, not long enough to like recuperate and like get my mind ready for another round of Terrifier.
I mean, I think a bag of Coke would definitely enhance the experience.
I was about to say, maybe instead of drinking Coke, you should have been snorting it, and you would have been all
different kind. Yeah,
for Act 2. Yeah. 4.5 hours is a long time to sit in the theater for anything.
And see, I don't mind,
and especially when there's 2 movies that are very similar.
Yeah, I like doing double features. Like my theater, I live out in the boonies, and so I have to drive like 30 minutes to the theater every time I go. And so, I like doing double features. I double it up. I get more for my time when I go up there. But watching 2 movies that are I mean, it was like one really long ass movie.
Right.
Doing it like that. So anyway, it's just a lot. But
yeah, I haven't done a double feature in a long time, but on Thursday, I'm going down to the Chinese theater. They're doing a tribute to or Lifetime Achievement Award for Dean Cundy, presented by John Carpenter, and they're going to do The Thing and Halloween, the original.
That's awesome. But to Jody's point,
that's the kind of thing I can get up for.
Those are 2 very different movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whereas, Chattanooga Film Festival, we sat there for 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day watching movies, but it's all so varied that you're never just like, and I love the Terrifier films, but 4.5 hours of that, it might be a little more.
Yeah, but by the time it was over, it was just like, oh, more limbs. Okay, more blood. when even a chainsaw between the butt cheeks is getting to be a little old,
All right, so we're jumping right into spoilers.
Okay.
Yeah, let's get right into it. We're doing Terrifier 3. It's a bit of a tongue twister. Jody, you can give us a vague plot synopsis. You have to go through every beat in this.
I mean, the plot of this one is pretty simple. Art comes back. I mean, it starts literally. Well, okay. There's a little like teaser scene at the very beginning where Art is Santa Claus and he comes in and murders an entire family, including a child and presumably one more child. I don't know. He stares at her at the end and then the scene cuts off. So it probably kills a few children in the very first scene of the movie. And then we go to a flashback for the end of Terrifier 2 where Art's head is in the asylum and his body is where Sienna killed him, and his body gets up and goes to the asylum and gets reunited with his head. And then they go to a little house, and the lady with the torn up face, what was it? Vicky? Is that the character name?
Vicky, yeah.
Vicky. She kills herself in the bathtub, and Art sits in a rocking chair, and 5 years pass. Why any of this happened, I have no idea.
Can I tell you my theory about the very beginning? The very beginning of my theory is that happened before Terrifier 2. The little girl in the cabinet is the little girl from Terrifier 2. That's my theory. Nobody's verified it, but I think that'd be kind of a cool little plot twist. They like, because it wouldn't really detract or add to the plot, but it'd be kind of like now you know where that little girl came from.
But did it say like 4 years earlier?
Fuck, you're right. Damn it, Jason.
It did.
I mean, there's no real continuity or consistency in this movie, so who knows?
Well, there is some, but like Jody and I were talking about it over messaging, and what got to me is that the fight, like why did he go dormant for 5 years?
Right. Yeah.
That's what I want to know.
It fully feels like, for plot purposes, like, well, it'd be a boring movie if it was just Sienna dealing with her trauma. So let's skip 5 years ahead, so she's a little bit past all that, and the trial is already passed, and get all that out of the way.
Jody, keep going.
But anyway, so speaking of Sienna, she has just been released from a mental health institute of some kind. Apparently, she's been there multiple times since the events of Terrifier 2, which makes perfect sense. It was nasty. It was bad for her. All of her friends died. And her brother is away. Okay, a little confused about something here, too. So in Terrifier 2, because I watched them back to back, he supposedly was 12 in Terrifier 2. So 5 years later, he's 17. Where is he at?
He was a freshman in college.
That's a young freshman, I guess. But yeah.
A young freshman, but I definitely had people like that graduated at 17 in my class. So it's doable. And they made it like he was, I guess so. College starts generally in the fall.
Yeah.
So he'd be like brand new in college.
Okay. So he's a very young freshman in college. Sienna has gone to live with her aunt and uncle and little cousin, Gabby.
One question. Yes. Was she going to visit them for the holidays, or was she actually like checking out completely? I wasn't sure.
I think she was living with them.
I'm going to say she was living there because she had her own room. And some people have guest rooms in their house, but I mean, where else was she going to go? Let's be honest.
Post-mental institution, and her mom, no longer has a face. So, you had to find somewhere.
Yeah, okay. I guess the beginning part made it seem like she was just like signing out for the weekends. But now that you talk about it, because they made the big point of them setting up a room and everything for the living.
Well, and they kept saying like, oh no, is she going to go back? Like as things kept getting crazier, they were like, they're going to have to send her back to the institute. Whatever.
Did they mention this other family at all in the first one, that she has like this like cousin who's like obsessed with her, or niece or whatever?
No, not in Terrifier 2.
I don't think so, but it wasn't.
I was just making sure.
Part of the plot point. Jason, can we let Jody finish with his recap?
Just kidding.
So anyway, you got all that going on. Art gets reawoken, and so does Vicky. And now Vicky is also possessed by whatever was possessing the little pale girl from Terrifier 2. So instead of little pale girl, you get Vicky this time, and it's still the same demon. Which I gotta say, personally, Vicky was fine. I miss little pale girl. She was really creepy, and Vicky just did not have that same creep factor as the little pale girl did.
Well, okay. Real quick, also, Pale Girl was imaginary. Like, she had no corporal form, where Vicky does, and Vicky talks.
I don't know if she was imaginary, because Sienna and Jonathan could both see her. I think she was just ghosty.
But there's a scene where there's like a victim couldn't see her. Like he's looking at
art. The guy in the like laundromat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it as that that little girl was the demon in supernatural form, and that's the form she liked to take, and then she eventually overtook Vicky.
Yeah. That was where I'm at too. But anyway, no little pale girl this time. Instead, we get Vicky the entire time. Which she can talk. So, we get some demon taunting later on in the movie. We get a lot of lore with all this stuff about the whole demon stuff. That's delivered later in a plot dump between Sienna and Jonathan, because Jonathan had figured all this stuff out at some point in the last 5 years and had written her a letter about it. But she hadn't seen Jonathan in a while. they kind of did Jonathan dirty in this movie. Not just what happens later in the movie, and we'll get to that. But like he barely has a part in this movie. Like he's just kind of there and he argues with her, and there's like hints that there's something else going on. Like at one point he texts somebody like she just came over and it's getting worse, and I have no idea who he texted or what was going on there. It just like it never went anywhere.
Oh no, he was texting the uncle.
Was it the uncle? Okay.
Yeah, it was the uncle. So someone brought this up yesterday when I was chatting about it with a friend on his podcast, and they said that this was shot a lot during the Screen Actors Guild strikes.
Okay.
And the Writers Guild. So he actually thinks that some of the people involved in this, they didn't get the actors for as long as they wanted them to, and that was a speculation with Jonathan.
That does make sense. Because they really,
I'm not sure if that's fact or not, but that's what someone brought up, and it'd be interesting to look into.
I thought it was such a big part of the second movie, and the like bond between Sienna and Jonathan was such a big part of the second movie that he's like kind of barely there, and he's away at college the entire time, and then things happen later on in the movie. Like I don't know, it felt weird. Like I felt like there was something kind of missing there in that like family bond between the two of them.
Mondo, can you let Jody finish the synopsis?
Actually.
Anyway, Art gets woken up, and so does Vicky, and they start doing their thing. Art he goes to a bar that has Clint Howard and Santa Claus and a bartender there, and he messes with the Santa Claus for a while and pees on his lap, just the kind of thing that Art does, and then kills everybody and steals Santa's beard and his costume. And so that's why we have Santa Art for the rest of the movie. He's in the costume.
And what do you mean by stealing his beard?
Yeah, he does rip off his entire beard, like including the skin underneath. He didn't wear that through the entire movie, though. He does do the costume. And then, murder and mayhem ensues, and Sienna gets every possible thing taken away from her. And then there's demon stuff. We can talk about all that as we get towards the end of the discussion. But yeah, it's just murder. And it's bloody, it's gory, pretty fun. Good effects. The effects are crazy.
Yeah. All right.
That's enough synopsizing, I think.
Yeah. All right, Mondo, start us off.
So the first thing I'll say about this is Terrifier 2 was long, and it felt long. It really did. It seemed like a lot of stuff could have been tightened up with some editing. Mm-hmm. Not a ton, but 15 minutes or so. This movie, I think, moved along at a much better pace, where at no point was I worried. Worried's the wrong word, but no point was I like looking at my watch or thinking, man, how long have I been sitting here for? So I thought that was a big positive, and I am positive on the film. I loved the actual, like, I wish, again, to Jody's point, I wish there was more on-screen time for Jonathan. Mm-hmm. I really do. And I think his interactions with Sienna are fantastic, because you have these two kids dealing with trauma. And a lot of this movie talks about mental health and trauma, to be honest with you, because she's fighting these battles and she's trying to keep her shit together. But it's the classic how society sees how a woman should handle trauma versus a man, where you have the boy trying to just suppress all the emotions and drive them deep, and like, I'll worry about it in 80 years when I explode. So I thought that was very, very well done and very cool. Lauren Lavera kills it in this movie. I'll say she is my new favorite final girl. And I love how you see her internal struggles, as well as her still presenting this outwardly strong person. Art's kills are fantastic as usual. Art's is having a good time being Art the Clown. There is some interesting stuff they did in this, though. So at the beginning, he goes to kill those children, where he kills the one child. Mm-hmm. We see the aftermath of that. Then they have the scene in the mall where the bomb goes off and obviously kills many children. But they never actually show a child in the act of being killed. Like when the explosion goes off, you don't see anything. And that's actually a really interesting choice. And I'm okay with that. The only thing I shouldn't say I wish they didn't do, but I was kind of hoping they wouldn't kill the rats.
Oh, yeah.
But
that's
I also think well, it's just, dude, you know what, man? A human will give you a reason. Like, That Santa Claus at the bar is out there getting drunk. He's probably going to drive home. Art might have saved some lives. We don't know. And
the kids could have grown up to be worse than Art. You never know.
yeah, that kid could have been like, imagine that one little kid's name was Adolf. Like, we don't know. And
Mondo, defender of Art the Clown's crimes. He was justified. He did everything he did for a reason.
He didn't do anything wrong, guys.
Yeah, he's just misunderstood, right?
Art is being unfairly maligned in these movies.
Justice for Art. I just thought it was an interesting choice. And killing the rats, I think the whole point of it was to make him as unlikable as possible. Mm-hmm. And that's the one thing about Art the Clown. And I think Art the Clown, people compare him to Freddy a lot. Freddy was this larger than life character that they implemented these wisecracks with because he was getting popular and they wanted people to smile and laugh at him. They want to be able to use him as a mascot, where Art the Clown goes out of the way to be a despicable character. Like, you're not supposed to like him. You can like his antics, but at the end of the day, you're rooting for Sienna.
Yeah.
You want to see Sienna succeed.
Like, even like there are some really funny scenes in this, and a lot of it is Art's acting and what he does. Like, there's a scene where he's overhearing some people talk about him, and they're talking about like how evil he is, and he's like, "Oh, you know," and making faces. It's really, really funny. But at the same time, by the end of the movie, I'm like, "Oh, he's so mean." Like, it's the viciousness of it all that even when he's being goofy and silly, like, the meanness of it. Like, this is a mean movie. Sienna gets put through the ringer in this thing.
And his goofiness is him amusing himself.
Yeah.
Right.
Everything he does, he does all this. He kills people because he thinks it's funny. Mm-hmm. It's the anti-clown. And I think that's a brilliant take for him. Like Jody was mentioning, the scene inside the shower, the tribute to Psycho and Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the same time. If I can say, like, I loved the podcaster aspect of this because I wonder if it's something that Damien Leone thinks about when he thinks about true crime podcasts, that they're exploiting some of these victims for their own gain. Mm-hmm. And that's what I saw when she came and had the gall to ask Sienna to be on her podcast to talk about what she went through. Because it's been 5 years. I mean, you can talk about it now. It's like, holy shit, you're over there telling someone who went through this trauma that they just need to get over it and be on my podcast, because you don't really care about the person, you care about your podcast. And she also had the fascination with serial killers. And my favorite thing in the whole movie is she's telling her boyfriend, I just want to know what it's like to look in the eyes of the devil, basically. So then as Art is wrecking this girl, she's borderline death, and he grabs her face and he takes his glasses off and looks right in her eyes. And I thought that was just, it sent chills down my spine. So I was like, that is sick. And that is what a killer would do. Also, to defend Art the Clown, though, you know, he's taking a piss in this bathroom. And you know what he does after he pees? He washes his hands.
Yeah.
If Art the Clown can wash his hands after peeing because he doesn't want to spread his piss germs everywhere, then guys out there, you can do the same thing. The amount of people that walk into the airport bathrooms and go into a stall even and leave without washing their hands is too damn high. And that shit's got to stop. He also does what I do, where when I wash my hands, I tend to stare at myself in the mirror just because I like to look at something that I hate while I'm washing my hands. So it just makes me wash them more aggressively.
I do like all those little character moments with Art like that, though. Like little things that you could have left out, like him washing his hands, or like in the first scene, he kills everybody. And then he takes this little Christmas cookie plate and goes over to the sink and he washes the plate out and puts it in the dish drain. Like, it's just a little character moment that it's completely unnecessary, but it just shows how bizarre this character is. And I like that.
I think in his head, he's going, it'd be stupid if I just wash this plate and put it in the dishwasher and the cops found a wash plate. Like, yeah. I don't know. I just think I think he thinks that's funny. That's just his bizarre, he's a bizarre version of humor. But overall, like, I really did enjoy this. I think the second one is still my favorite in the series. But this one definitely sets up the next one very nicely. I love the lore. I love the world building around it. And there's so many different directions they can go in the future that I'm pretty excited to see what they do next. And fucking bravo to an indie film making $20 million at the box office and being number one. My theater was packed. I don't know about you guys, but it was a cool experience.
My theater was not packed, but it was only because for the double feature, you just had a handful of hardcore people. Like
Right.
only the people who really wanted it were there for that.
Yeah, my theater was like maybe a quarter full, but everyone there, you could tell was like a pretty hardcore horror person. Like there were at least a good, maybe 5 or 6 people wearing Art the Clown t-shirts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like outside of a Marvel movie, I can't think of it last time I've seen that kind of.
Yeah, and we were all people in my theater. We were all talking to each other, like, "Hey, you know, you're a fan? Hey, yeah, me too. I can't wait to watch this one." You know,
Especially considering where you live at too.
yeah.
I saw there wasn't a religious protest out here in Vegas, but in the theater, right? But so the theater is the very, very end of the hallway that was playing Terrifier. Because at the theater I go to, they have the stadium theater, and they also have the one with recliners. They add a recliner showing, so I cancel my stadium ticket to get my nice ass recliner. And in front of it, there was a table with all kinds of from a local church, with all the church material laid out.
Nice.
And I thought that was a nice touch.
Something about Christmas it gets people riled up more than anything else.
Hey, you know, never mind. I was gonna say, because nothing riles someone up more than saying Happy Holidays.
All right, Jody, what did you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, watching it back to back was a lot. Like it just was a lot. Eventually, you know, dismemberment kind of becomes like, okay, more limbs, more arms, more blood. But there were some really creative scenes in this one. Like, I think I agree with Mondo that I overall like part 2 better. And I think, okay, so my reasons for not liking this one as much have to do with some of the choices they made later on in the movie with what happened to some characters.
We can go into it.
We want to go. Okay, let's get to the end.
Full spoiler, guys. Full spoiler alert.
So by the time we get to the end, the final confrontation between Art and Sienna in this movie. First off, her uncle gets killed and mounted on the wall in like a big, like open stomach. Her aunt has a big tube shoved down her throat, and rats are put down into the tube to like crawl into her, and then they slit her throat and the rats come out. So all this in front of Sienna. Again, very mean to Sienna in this movie. Like they're taking everything from her. And then they say, "Oh, and here's your cousin," and they show this skull with like most of the flesh like melted off,
with rats in the cage, like the rats.
This is before the mom dies. The mom gets to see that the Gabby's mom. But then after Gabby's mom is dead, they go, "Actually, you know what? This isn't really Gabby," and they bring real Gabby out, you know, planning to kill her. And Vicky says, "You know, this is who this really is," and she puts Jonathan's glasses on the skull, implying that Jonathan's dead. Now, we never actually see Jonathan die, and this is horror. So there's a part of me that thinks maybe that's a fake out. I'm not 100% on that.
You know, that's a good point, because they faked out with what was the girl's name again? The niece,
Gabby.
Yeah. Sorry, I keep calling her like Glenda. I don't know why, but yeah, with Gabby, it's so messed up when you think about it, because they pretended that was Gabby just so the mom would think that her daughter got brutally murdered before she died.
Yeah,
they wanted her to have that little last bit of horrendous agony that as parents, obviously, you could not imagine what would be going through that person's brain. But you bring up a good point, because then who knows that they're just lying to Sienna too.
Yeah,
to say that could be some random person, and they could be saying that just to fuck with her.
In this series, that is so focused on blood and guts and gore and murder scenes, to have a main character just get killed off screen with no proof that he's dead feels suspicious to me.
But the counterpoint to that is, because we're talking much more low budget filming, and with I would say not professional actors, but like young actors who probably have, you know, lots of ambitions. At very least, it could be like, actually, I do want to go to college and, you know, do something else. So like, just write me off in that off-screen kill. So I'm not saying it's one way or the other, but
I just feel like he was too important of a character, and this series is too focused on showing people dying to not show us if he actually died.
And it does make sense in the fact that the demon is essentially trying to break Sienna to the point, because she wants Sienna. Like that's her white whale. and she really wants Sienna, so that would make sense if they lied to her just to try to break her that further, that much more down.
Right. So I don't know, and that may be something that comes up in part 4 because it is already confirmed there is a 4 that's happening. But if Jonathan did die, that's a real bummer. Like it was really like, oh man, like to have this character again, especially watching them back to back. In part 2, like the brother sister bond was very important, and then in this one, for him to kind of be off screen for a lot of it and to die off screen, like it didn't end with any kind of victory. Like there's Sienna and Art have a big fight, and it's a cool fight scene. She's got her, badass sword from the second movie, and he's got a chainsaw, and it's a cool fight. In the process, Gabby falls down a hole to hell, I guess, and disappears, and Art gets away, and that's the end of the movie. Sienna's just left there. Like, I think what they're doing is setting her up to be like, now she's going after Art. Like she's mad, so she's taking it to him instead of him coming after her. She's going to go after him, and I like that idea. But like that means no victory in part 2. Like in part 1, he had his head chopped off at the end of the movie. In part 2, like Sienna's just there by herself. Her entire family is dead, and she's angry, but has no like. And I think just having no release after all of this blood and guts and violence, to have no like, at least they got theirs. I mean, Vicky died, but I didn't.
That's what you call. That's what you call edging. That's what you call edging. It's just all the build up and no release.
Yeah.
I have a theory about what they've done, and they mentioned how kind of this demon can take control of somebody once they want to find a vile, hideous person to kind of latch onto. And do you see it maybe that Art was mortal until the end of Terrifier 2, in which case he was murdered by Sienna, but the reason why Art's head is reborn is because that's when the demon latches onto him and grants him the powers and grants him supernatural powers.
I think he died at the end of part 1 also, though, and the little pale girl brought him back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking. I think he was supernatural since the beginning of part 2, and he's been supernatural. But now that Vicky's dead, I'm wondering if he is mortal now because he doesn't have this reanimating demon anymore.
And that could be interesting if Sienna's chasing him and he's actually afraid right now because he knows he can die.
Yeah, or he ran away from her.
Or is Jonathan going to be the new demon person?
They could do that. I don't know if I'd go that route, but then again, I also have faith in Damien Leone and crafting a good story either way.
Yeah.
So
well, and just to be real picky here, I don't know if Jonathan's a good enough actor. Like I like the kid.
I think you're giving him too much acting credit.
Period as the bad guy.
I think he's like an electronic artist, like a synth artist. And they kind of he did some music for the movie, and they kind of liked him, so they put him in, is what I think happened too. But it's also, it's the same thing that happened with Clerks. If you watch the movie Clerks, Brian O'Halloran is the worst actor.
Yeah.
I love Dante. He's the worst actor. But once the movie got that popular, like, well, you can't have a Clerks 2 and not have Dante.
Yeah.
Even though he's the worst actor in the movie.
Well, and even if Jonathan's not the best actor, like I still feel like he was a good character, and I think like him as a character. No. So I'm a horror fan. I'm willing to overlook a little bit of mediocre acting. It's not the end of the world.
Exactly.
All right, let me do my spiel here. As someone who likes to review movies and think about movies critically, these movies kind of hurt me in a certain way that like force me to not think, like to avoid any of that kind of thinking. I feel, as a horror fan, I feel compelled to watch them. They're like frustrating in a way, but also kind of compelling. The upside down split kill in the first one is by far one of the most craziest burned in my brain kills in all of movies.
I'll say the about that kill was no playfulness. It was just mean and nasty. The first kill. That's kill.
Mondo, you all roboted out there, but
I don't know.
You're agreeing with me.
Okay, you're back. What was that?
You're back.
I'm gonna say that that kill from the first movies where a lot of people turned that movie off because it was very, very mean. There was not any playfulness to it. It is just, I'm going to kill this woman and cut her in half and make her friend watch and enjoy it.
Terrible way.
And that, in my opinion, will still be like the most visceral kill he's ever done.
Well,
that was the part where I'm like, oh, okay, we're really going places.
Yeah. I didn't like part one. Like I am not a fan of the first one. Maybe I can go back now after having liked these other ones, because I didn't feel like there was enough to it. It was just meanness and violence with nothing putting it together. Like all this lore stuff, like actually made it more interesting for me. Like I liked Art in the first one, but he needed a better story, and this is that story.
Yeah, so I mean that kill is the only thing I really remember of the first one, to be honest. Like of any like concreteness. The second one, like we've all said, is way too long, but there's just so much crazy shit in that movie. And it was an interesting turn to the fantastical. It didn't make any sense in that context of that movie. But I'm like, okay, again, I'd rather sitting at home watching it. I'm like, okay, I can watch this. I'd rather much rather watch at home than in the theater. But again, and as a horror fan and with all the hype around the movies, I'm still with that. This one compelled, so the third one compelled me to go see it in the theater. And I liked it. There's the thing about these movies is that there's no subtlety to anything, and that's the bread and butter. That's what it is.
But it also never treats us like we're idiots as a viewing audience, which is I know some people had that issue with the substance, and I totally get that, because I don't need all these flashbacks because I pay attention to the movie. And I think that at no point though does it make you feel as a member they think you're stupid, or as an audience member, which is nice.
Right. No, I'm just saying the movie's like, we're not giving it a try to like it's
right.
It just kind of reads everything's just kind of very surface, which is fine. That's what it wants to be. And I was kind of into it. Actually, that scene with him as the scene where he meets the Santa Claus is great. Him being frozen in that chair was creepy as fuck. I'm all down for that. When he does the mall Santa bit, I think that might have been my favorite scene in the movie, because you really don't know how far they're going to go with that.
Yeah.
I think the ending just kind of comes out of nowhere. Like I was like, wait, is this really? Are we in the end game at this point?
I kind of thought it was a dream sequence or something, because it was so suddenly, like the uncle says he's going to go pick up Jonathan, and then suddenly everyone's dead and Sienna's at the house with the two bad guys.
Yeah, it was very all of a sudden. And there's a couple little things where like Art shows up to the school and he looks like he's going to a frat house, but then suddenly he's in the dorm room.
That was the frat house, I thought.
Was it? But it looked more like a dorm. Like the bathroom was very dorm-esque.
I've never been in a frat house, so I shouldn't talk.
I'm just saying that it just looked weird. That bathroom scene is crazy as fuck. I give them, again, if there's any constraint in any of these movies, it's that like they don't really go much on nudity. We figured girl in the shower and they're having sex. Actually, I know that was part one a little bit, but
even the nudity in the sex scene isn't it's not over the top, because it's more like something these two horny college students would do. It's not like the old 80s slashers where it's like, I'm gonna go take a shower and it's 15 minutes of the girl massaging her breasts.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it is an actual shower scene with a murder that takes place, but I don't think any body parts are actually shown other than like the ones being cut off. Like, there's no nudity, like no body, other than I guess butts. There's some butts in there.
Yeah.
And a chainsaw shoved up one of them. But
it wasn't grituitous. The violence is gratuitous. The nudity is not.
Yeah, I mean, but again, going back again to the ending, it was weird because Vicky's doing all this talking, and I'm used to like the silent killers. So I really missed the pale girl. I didn't love Vicky doing all this overly talking, like Wicked Witch of the West almost.
I felt it reminded me of Evil Dead with the Deadites, when the Deadites would give the little pieces of exposition. So I actually really liked it.
It's just weird to have Art kind of like play second fiddle for those moments.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was, because the Pale Girl was always there like as a supporting character. By the end, Vicky seemed like the main bad guy, and I guess that fits with the lore that it's this demon or whatever. But I don't know. I want more Art than Vicky.
Yeah. And like you're saying, I didn't think that the whole Jonathan death thing, like it didn't really occur to me while I was watching it that he might still be alive. I was like, really? That's terrible. That's really if that's where they leave it, I'll be very disappointed.
That's something that I didn't think about until later. In the moment, it was just like, oh, really?
I know it's really off-putting.
Sucks. That's really awful.
And another thing to think about these movies, though, when he was making Terrifier 2, I don't think he had any idea it would become. I imagine he was proud of the movie he was making, right? But I don't think he had any idea it was going to become what it became. So I don't know if Terrifier 2 was necessarily written with the idea that there was going to be an over the top Terrifier 3, because it almost seemed with Terrifier 2, the end scene with Chris Jericho and the head being born was it felt like that was tacked on after the film was already done, because they realized, oh wait, we're going to get greenlit for a third one. Let's go ahead and add this on. So I think that's also why they had to kind of, with the art getting decapitated and coming back. By the way, I love him. I fucking love him sitting on the bus with someone else's head on.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. That made me audibly laugh in the theater. Oh, and Tom Savini was in this too.
Yep.
Oh, great!
Yeah, some great cameos. I think the ending of this one was a little bit of a letdown from the crazy ass ending of the second one. And then when she said, like, I'm going back to the Terrifier to get the knife or get the sword, whatever, I was like, okay, we're getting a cool sequence back on that set, and shit's gonna happen there. And this they just shows up with the knife again.
Yeah. I didn't think they needed to do anything with that, because that's a location in the past. She went to go get that. I did like, though, how they had the nosy God, I keep wanting to call her freaking Glenda. The nosy niece. I loved how they had her, though. She knew what the present was because she peeked.
Right, yeah, you knew all that wasn't going to happen.
I just thought it was a cool touch they did, because they just mentioned earlier that she was nosy. And she'll unwrap all her presents. I did like when she's having that conversation with the parents, and she goes, "You guys are bad at hiding them." He goes, "I tore the carpet up and put them under the floorboards."
Yeah,
and he still found
them. Yeah, I think the ending was just kind of lacked, at least compared to the second one. And also they didn't bring it back to the opening. That's what I figured it was going to go to, or something like that. Or what I thought was going to happen was they're going to flash forward to the opening sequence where he's in the house and he's about to get that little girl in the cupboard. Then Sienna was going to show up and save her, and that was going to kind of be like the ending or something like that.
Okay,
does that make sense?
Yeah, I could see that.
But they just leave him. He's on the bus.
Yeah, I think that's probably where this one kind of disappointed me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Is just because it felt unsatisfying in the end. Like, again, everybody died, nobody got a victory, and then he just rode off on the bus. Like,
yeah, like at least like
she got stabbed and came back to life. Like, like it was all fantasy type stuff, and this one is just kind of sad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all down for a down ending, like, Empire Strikes Back, but at least like there's some glimmer of hope in all those second movies like that. Or those like.
Hold on a second. Empire Strikes Back. An orphan meets his father. How was that a sad ending?
And we get like another weird scene with her dad that we still don't know what the hell's going on there.
Yeah, and that scene was weird. And the one where it's like a demon forging the sword.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's the other piece I also kind of didn't get. And but again, I'm gonna not be upset about that, because I do think that's going to get we'll eventually find out what that meant. Well, and the war with the dad is going to keep going.
I remember after Terrifier 2, people being like, what's up with the little pale girl? They never explained her. Why is she there? And a lot of that got explained in this movie. So I have a feeling they're going to explain some more stuff in the next movie too.
And was this scene with the dad, was that a dream sequence? Like she was remembering a real thing that happened, but then
I think part. Yeah.
I think it was like a memory within a dream, so it's like kind of unreliable or exaggerated. I think because the first one was just really schlock, over the top gore, and then they're like, well, we can also put in some interesting characters and some story into this, but like it's still within the schlock movie. It's a dissonance that like my brain has trouble like finding the right frequency for.
I mean, we're talking about like all this like complicated like lore and stuff like that. It's also, again, a movie where a chainsaw gets shoved up a man's ass. Like
right. And I'm not blaming the movie. I'm not blaming the movie for me not being able to get on its wavelength all the way.
I get it.
That's not the movie. I'm not blaming the movie necessarily on that. It's an interesting exercise.
Oh, one other interesting piece to this too, and they kind of gloss over it a little bit, is that there are a lot of people that think Sienna is the one that butchered all these people, and everyone's covering, and her brother's covering for her. And I thought that was really interesting too.
They didn't really go into that, but also that also makes me think of a lot of like was it Halloween Ends. Didn't they like have a thing where like people were blaming Laurie for Haddonfield's troubles? So I think that was like setting off my like Halloween Ends tinglers about like
especially when it was all Corey. It was all for you, Corey.
Man, if you find out Corey is under Art's mask,
I've quit the series. I'm done.
I think Jody quit the series. He quit the podcast. He stopped watching horror. He'd be tearing his VHS boxes down off the wall. Like, it's all in the line.
That's it. I gave up on movies in general. Okay, so I was just looking just now because I was kind of curious if they'd said anything about Terrifier 4 other than it is confirmed to happen. And there's an article where they're interviewing the actors and kind of what they hope happens in there. And David Howard Thornton, who plays Art the Clown, says he wants to explore more of Art's human side in this next one. And then he says this. He said, for once he's scared, no longer having his power could make him dangerous. So I think when Vicky died, Art is now human. And so that changes the dynamic a lot. Like he could die now, like for real die. And so that's interesting. I like that. I like that for the next movie.
I'm all for
very much can mean Sienna goes after him now.
Yes.
I'm for Sienna being like in the sewer until
hanging out in the sewer for the next 20 years.
And then some college kid is going to find him there, and then he's going to become Art the Clown for a little while.
Stare at each other's eyes in an emotional moment and transfer.
And eventually
you give it Halloween Ends too much.
You know what's funny? It's I didn't hate Halloween Ends, and it's funny. I think I remember I watched it like 4 times in a week because I had COVID, so I watched it and fell asleep. Then I finished it. Then I watched it again for the podcast, and then one more time. But the more like I think about that, the more I hate it.
Like, it doesn't get better as you ruminate on it.
And I'm a huge Blue Oyster Cult fan, so I think BOC Don't Fear the Reaper playing at the end kind of got me. Like I love that scene, but
yeah. Let me ask you guys this. So, I mean, like I said, the upside down kill in the first one to me is iconic. The one with I think it was the mother in the bedroom where he's like literally shoving salt in the wounds.
Her friend Allison. That scene that's like 15 minutes long of her murder.
Yeah, that to me was like, again, crazy. That's very memorable. Was there a really memorable kill in this one? I don't feel like there was, at least compared to those.
Dude, so I think the shower scene, I think when the the guys that were going to the house to investigate the house, it's like they're doing a pre sweep before they demolished it. Him cutting his head open and then cutting the head open while Vicky was, having a good time in the background with a piece of broken glass. That was sick. That was great.
Okay, that was nasty stuff.
Yeah, that one probably is up there.
but I do think though that it'll, no matter what happens, it's always going to be the hacksaw scene that's going to be the most iconic Terrifier moment. Unless I'd almost wonder too if maybe in part 4, like you said, Art being more human, what if they scale back on the gore because he's going to be not being able to do these fanatical things, but still wanting to kill people, maybe just not as extreme. And I do think it's actually really well done in this too, where he uses a pistol again.
Yeah,
because it's such it comes out of nowhere, like you don't expect it. And I think that's the shock factor of it. And I know a lot of people gave them shit in the first one for him having a pistol. It's like, dude, who cares? Like he's killing people. That's not scarier. Like imagine if Jason had a gun.
Well, I remember when the very first kill in this is actually, at least it starts off not showing it. So it starts off because he's in the house during Christmas and he starts hitting the husband with an axe, but you only see the wife's reaction, the blood spray on her. And I was like, wait, are they gonna cut down on the gore in this one?
Wait, he kills the kid first,
right? Well, yeah, we hear the sounds.
Okay, yeah. So we had 2 kills that at least
off screen.
Started off somewhat off screen, and I was like, "Oh, are they scaling back? Are they gonna are they gonna troll us with this?"
I'm a light sleeper. I never would have been able to sleep through that, but I think my wife might be able to sleep through that, so it's believable.
I think it's the reverse for us. That like I
Yeah.
would sleep through a lot.
I would sleep through that.
Jody has no idea how many times Joe and I had to use the bathroom and walk through his bedroom when we were at Chattanooga Film Festival. And
Yeah.
I remember peeing one time and tripping on something and almost falling and be like, "Ah, fuck, god damn it!" Like really loud. And then I stop. I look over at Jody and I just hear. I'm like, oh, good.
And man, I have kids. Like I have got to learn to tune things out when I sleep. Otherwise, I would never sleep. It's just
All right.
part of it.
Let's do our episode rating. Our episode movie rating. 1 to 5. 5 being the best, 0 being the worst. What do you guys give this movie, Jody?
Okay, so I've thought about this quite a bit because the first movie was like 1 star for me. I hated it. Second one got 4.5 stars because I maybe I was just going in with so low expectations and I really enjoyed it, but I still really enjoyed it watching it again this last time. So I still really like it. This one's down just a little bit though, because I mostly because of that downer ending. I'm gonna go 3.5 on this one.
All right, Mondo.
I'm close. I went down. I think I gave the first one 4.5. I gave this one a solid 4. Because even with a downer ending, I'm a big fan of world building and what they did. And also, just shout out, he's never going to hear this, but David Howard Thornton.
Yeah.
Holy hell, man. He chews up so much screen without saying a word and conveys so much like emotion without conveying a word. It's pretty damn impressive. And I'm actually really excited to see what Damien Leone. I hope Damien Leone actually steps outside of the Terrifier universe. Because I want to see him do like a psychological horror or something, just not over the top gore. Because I think the guy has some great ideas. And but again, 3.5 is not a bad score. 4 is not a bad score. This movie's great.
And when I say 3.5, and I enjoyed it, and I will definitely watch it again, and I'll probably buy the Blu-ray when it comes out. Like
me too.
I'll go with the 3. I'm kind of somewhere around there. Like I haven't watched any of these movies the second time. I'm planning on watching this one again. I'm glad I saw it, and I'm glad to be kind of on the Terrifier train, but I'm not like over the moon. But I respect the filmmaking, especially the effects are just so damn fun. They're worth the price of admission.
And I just love. I was going to get to it when we get to horror news. Terrifier 3 is the #1 movie in the country right now. Whether you like it or not, like horror is having a big moment, and that's awesome. Like it's good for all of us as horror fans for a movie like this to get this kind of play.
And not just horror fans, independent cinema fans. Like this opens the door for I think movie theaters take a chance on something that might be a little bit outside of the box. And we've kind of seen that this year with a lot of movies like The Substance. That is not a movie I think 5 years ago would have gotten put in the theaters.
Yeah.
And
there's really wild movies making it out there now.
Well,
yeah, I'm excited.
A lot of people are wondering if it's like just from a backlog because of the writer's strike, but whatever it takes, man.
If it is though, I mean, sometimes it takes that for studios to realize that there's gold in other avenues. And also, man, shout out to Damien Leone too for also turning down some major studios funding, saying no, I'm not gonna conform to what you want me to do. This is gonna be a fucked up movie, and you're not gonna put me in a box.
No. All right. Well, now it's time for shout out.
Hi, I'm Todd Masters, and you're listening to Dads from the Crowd.
It's my new favorite one.
I know. I love Todd so much.
So for some inside baseball here to our listeners, Jody and I have never seen about 90% of these shout outs. So we're seeing it for the first time too. We're hearing it for the first time too. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought you guys would like that. All right, Mondo, give us your song of the day.
Well, I don't have a whole lot of background on this band, but there is this wacky band from France. And several of the members actually kind of paint their face like they're in a circus and very clown-like. And they act really weird on stage, but they have accordions and horns and all kinds of accoutrements, like the lead singer who's actually does all the instrumentation on the record, but then he gets session musicians to fill in for him, will be on stage playing a trumpet in between singing. And it is metal, but it's one of those things where during the pandemic, I was watching. I love that these bands were doing these concerts that with nobody there just to do something.
Yeah.
And I was just watching some of those, and this it was a real concert though. It wasn't a pandemic concert. This just popped up in the timeline, and I'm like, who the fuck is this? Because it's like something I've never heard before. And the band is called they're a French band, so I'm gonna butcher this. If we have any fans out there that speak French, please tell me how to pronounce this. It's Pensies Nocturnes. And they do really, really off the wall stuff. Their last couple records were they did one called the Grand, and I'm gonna butcher this name too, the Grand Guignol Orchestra. I don't know how that word's pronounced. I know it's a famous word.
Guignol.
Guignol. Thanks, Jody, for being the cultured one on the show.
I
like that Grand Guignol. I somehow said it better.
Yeah, I was curious about it.
But I somehow said it better when I'm trying to mock a southern accent. But the album I'm going to pick that they did is an album from 2010 called Grotesque, because grotesque definitely fits in with the theme of this movie. And the song I'll pick off it is because I like the name of it is Hell with one L. Almost like the god is hell. And I'd say check them out. Like if people are a fan, maybe not of metal, but of just like music that's different. And again, I also picked this because for a movie it doesn't really go outside the box when it comes to like our standards as horror fans. But when it comes to mainstream horror, this definitely goes places that most mainstream horror is not going to go. So I like when I see bands that also do that and they step outside those confines of their genre and say, we're going to do what we want to do, regardless of what you think. They have an accordion. Like, for Christ's sake, give them a shot. Like, I think they're a cool band. And I think rather than listen to them, look them up on YouTube and try to watch one of their live performances, because it's pretty cool to see.
Do they put the accordion through like a effects pedal or anything, or is it just?
Don't be ridiculous. I honestly don't remember. I honestly don't.
Like accordion with a wah-wah pedal.
Dude, I'm sure Kirk Hammett, any fucking instrument he ever plays, he hooks Kirk Hammett be the first person ever to hook a wah-wah pedal up to an electronic drum kit.
Nice.
Kirk's a great guitar player. I wish someone would just tell him no and take the wah-wah pedal away.
It's a security blanket.
Yeah, I get that. The worst thing that ever happened to Kirk Hammett was when he started taking guitar lessons from Joe Satriani, who also, again, better guitar players than I will ever be in my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what I don't have on my pedal board over here? I don't have a fucking wah pedal, because I got so sick of hearing the wah in Metallica. And the best Metallica solos are the ones that he doesn't overkill on the wall, like the Creeping Death solo and the Orion solo, which I think was played by James Hetfield, though. But anyhow, I digress.
All right, Jody, give us some horror news.
All right, so let's start with a little bit of news about Terrifier, because like I said, it is the #1 movie in the country. What we didn't mention, though, the budget for this movie was made for $2 million.
Wow.
It made that on Thursday night, on the Thursday night preview, 2.6 million in the very first night. It already made its budget back. I think it's on track to make $20 million the first weekend. It's just insane for a $2 million movie. Like,
so great.
It's so great for something that low budget. But for a little bit of insanity too, if you just can't get enough of the Terrifier universe and you want to get deeper into the lore without watching the gore, there's an official Terrifier 2 novelization that has been released. It's by the same guy who did like all the Halloween novelizations, Halloween Kills, Resident Evil, stuff like that, Tim Wagner. And so I actually very much want to read this because I feel like it's all the lore without the gore. Like, so you get all the like backstory and everything without, actually just watching, wanton violence. As much as I enjoy wanton violence, I actually have kind of invested in this world now and I want to know what's going on better. And I feel like the novelization is the way to go deep into the background here.
I ordered off Amazon. It should be here tomorrow.
Yeah,
Tuesday because of the holiday.
But yeah, no, I'm definitely gonna get deeper into the Terrifier universe. But as far as other stuff, we're
right fast, Jody. Before you leave the Terrifier universe, did you see the game that's coming out?
No, I didn't.
Terrifier, the arcade game. A side scroller beat 'em up in the vein of Double Dragon, where you play as Art the Clown, just murking people. It looks ridiculous, but it looks fun. I'll send you. Just look up the trailer, look up the Artcade game, and it'll pop up.
Yeah, I've been wanting horror games to actually do more than just the asymmetrical thing.
Yeah.
Like, I get kind of tired of playing like, okay, 4 counselors versus 1 Jason. Like, I want more horror games, more variety out there to that. And so, yeah, I'm 8-bit retro type stuff. Yes, that's fine. Side scrollers and beat 'em ups. Yes, let's more horror like that. So I'm very excited about that idea.
Well, you're also like me too, where sometimes I don't have 40 minutes to sit down and dedicate to a game. I might need to pause and go do something. And
Right.
and all of us as parents with children, I just don't want other people to have to rely on me if I get a work phone call and have to take it, and I feel bad that I'm not there with you guys fighting Jason or whatever. So yeah, give me more single player games. Or my favorite ones recently been co-op. I like co-op games too. Like if I can just play and then Jody jumps on the Xbox and just jumps in. They did that on Shredder's Revenge, and it's so much fun because you can play and people just jump in. You're having a great time. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, so that sounds great to me. I'm definitely gonna check that out. But we're right in the middle of spooky season, and so there's some releases and stuff. One of them is we have now heard that the movie Frankie Frico, which is in theaters right now, that's the one from the guys who made
Psycho Gorman.
Psycho Gorman, yeah. It's actually going to be released on digital on October 25th. So in time for Halloween, you get some more just straight up ridiculousness because
that's awesome.
This movie, and it's not a knock on this movie, probably looks like the one I'm least interested in of all the ones he's done. But hey, he did The Void and he did, like I said, Psycho Gorman. Like I'm in for anything he does.
Yeah,
and
Freddie's
been on the podcast, so there's also that too.
What's that?
He's been on the podcast.
Oh yeah.
He actually said if we can make it to Canada, that he would kill us in his movie.
I know. So if you go join our Patreon so we can go to Canada and get killed.
Yeah. All right, and one more little piece of news here. It's just been announced, but Samara Weaving is officially back on for Ready or Not 2. And I have no idea what Ready or Not 2 could be, considering how the first one ended, but it's more Samara Weaving, and Radio Silence is also on board again. Okay. So that's enough for me. Radio Silence, Samara Weaving. I will watch it, whatever it is.
Are they directing? Are they producing? Are they writing?
I think they're directing.
Nice. Okay, then I'm bored. If it was like just producing, I'm like, but
yeah, all they've said plot wise is they told Entertainment Weekly that Ready or Not 2 is getting figured out. What we can say is there's a script and it's an absolute fucking banger. That's all we've got, and I trust them because I like their stuff, and I love Samara Weaving. She's one of my favorite horror actresses right now. So, yeah, I'm in.
And if I can add some stuff real fast, I think the new Epitaphs from the Abyss, the EC comic series, comes out on Wednesday. Nice. If you're listening to this this week, also a couple great other horror things that this season. In Search of Darkness or Hello Darkness is a fantastic anthology horror series. I've been reading. Gareth McInnes does a couple stories in it, and it's been just wonderful. And then our not our friend, but someone we're a big fan of, Clay McLeod, just did his first horror comic.
Oh, nice.
And I forgot the name of it. I was trying to pull it up here before. Clay McLeod Chapman. He does a comic, and the comic's name is called. I can't find it. Sorry. So
that's a great name.
Damn it. Oh wait, I got it. It's called Seance in the Asylum. It's a 4-issue period horror film about basically a woman going to an insane asylum, but she has psychokinetic powers or telekinesis powers, and crazy shit starts happening. Read the first issue. It's really good. And then non-horror, the new Absolute Batman, they're relaunching the entire DC universe.
I was reading about this, yeah,
dude. Absolute Batman floored me enough to where I hate Superman, and I pre-ordered the Superman and the Wonder Woman one because I'm like, where are they going? Because they went so many cool directions in this. If you want to know more, I can give you spoilers off air, but I won't say spoilers.
No, I read a bunch of spoilers about. So I was curious.
I'm so back into comic books now. It's not even funny. A Creep Show now has a comic. Victor Crowley comics all coming out because it's October.
Well, yeah, Victor Crowley they have a Victor Crowley like Halloween Tales that comes out every year, and the new one's coming out like right about now. So yeah, good stuff.
Support your local comic book shop, guys. It's a fucking addiction. Like, how did I get back into this shit? I blame EC Comics. Because I literally went to the comic book shop to buy one EC comic and spent $50. And now I'm there every week. I'm a regular. What the fuck?
Get you a pull list.
I do now. I do have a pull list.
Nice.
All right. Well, before we wrap up, do we have any dad advice, Jody? You've survived another year on this earth. Do you have any birthday stories or advice or anything that you want to talk about?
Oh man. Mondo and I were having a discussion earlier today about Terrifier 3 and people taking their kids to see it. So what I do when it comes to stuff like that, because I watch horror movies with my kids all the time. I'm doing an October thing right now. And my daughter, who wants to watch all these with me, she's watched all of them. We're, on the 13th right now, and she's watched every one of them, one every night. And I have some coming up that I'm like, I'm just not sure that it's okay, like Wolf Creek, which is really intense. And I like, what I do more than anything is I try to watch movies first when there's something that I have questions about, like Terrifier. My kids have seen Terrifier 2 just because I had seen it and I knew they could handle it. But I definitely would not have.
Kids, what ages saw this movie?
The youngest one was 13.
Okay.
But I knew what they were getting into, and I was able to give them like a heads up of what it was going to be. I would not show up at the theater for a Terrifier movie having not seen it with my kid. Like, I would want to see it first. And then I could make a decision, because then I know what's coming. I'm still not 100% sure if the younger ones are going to watch Terrifier 3 when it comes out.
Well, and your kids better than anybody else does. You know what they can handle. You know where they are. And that's just kind of like my fear is, and I brought up my buddy Paul. He sent me a message. He had 11 people walk out of the theater. There was a couple people there with 2 children. He goes, they couldn't have been older than 10.
Yeah.
And they made it to the mirror penetration scene and they left with their kids. I'm like,
yeah.
Like, to Jody's point, if you don't know what you're getting into, I don't understand the fucking mental gymnastics it takes to decide you're going to take 2 10-year-olds to an NC-17 film, basically an unrated film.
Right.
Like, and that you can just go on the internet and say, is Terrifier 3 bad for watch kids? And everyone's gonna be like, yeah, like, know your children is kind of what I'm saying. Like, what they can handle. Well,
and I wanted to know what was in this one first, like the glass thing, or like how explicit's the shower scene, like what kind of stuff's going to come up in this? Like, is it going to be really nasty? Is it going to be sexual in ways that are uncomfortable? Like the first, or in Terrifier 2, which they have watched, it's violence, but like things are not nasty in the same kind of way. You know what I mean? Like, Terrifier 1, they have not watched, mainly because of that sawn in half scene. Like,
you bring up Wolf Creek, and Wolf Creek isn't the most violent movie, but the implied violence is very serious and very visceral and very
realistic.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the line there. Is like, in Terrifier, I'm like, this is over the top in a way that if you know what you're getting into, it's kind of silly almost. Even as bloody as it is, it's campy.
Well, like all movies,
it's like Itchy and Scratchy come to life.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it, actually. It's like when I was younger, one of the movies that scared me the most was the Cape Fear remake.
Yeah.
That movie scared the crap out of me as a kid, because I'm like, this could really happen.
Yeah. I mean, the movies that, even as an adult, the stuff that freaks me out more than anything, I can watch Art the Clown chop at people for 4.5 hours in the movie theater and drive home, with no problem. But a movie like The Strangers, I have watched The Strangers once, and I thought it was an awesome movie that have not touched again because it freaked me out so bad.
Well, just to dovetail a little bit, our friend of the podcast, Caitlin Grant over at Plug It Up, recently did an episode like the best endings in the horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously lots and lots of great ones, but the one that I always think of is, which isn't like a much known movie, is Eden Lake. The ending of that movie just chilled me.
So brutal and depressing.
Yeah. What sucked? Oh, I watched that movie because it came out. It was like Dimension Extreme when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching it on DVD when it came out and being like, well, I don't want to watch that again. And it's a great movie, don't get me wrong, but I can't remember it now. So now I'm gonna have to watch it again and be like, oh yeah. I'm gonna do it.
Michael Fassbender, so I want to watch it because I love him. He's one of my favorite actors, but that ending is just so bleak.
Yeah,
Jason, we can watch it at the same time, and then afterwards we can talk about it. We'll talk through it. We'll have a therapy session afterwards.
Mondo, if you hold me afterwards and cuddle me, like rock me to sleep, I think I'll be okay.
Dude, I feel like in this scenario, you're the big spoon, though. But you want to know what, though? As a guy who was a bigger dude at one point, when you're a big guy, it's nice to be the little spoon sometimes.
That should be our tagline. As a big guy, it's nice to be the little spoon sometimes.
You can be little spoon. It's fine. It's fine. I mean, I don't know how it's going to work out. We'll figure it out.
We'll switch it up.
Put that on a t-shirt. That's our merch. Dad's from the Crypt. As a big guy, it's nice to be the little spoon sometimes.
All right.
You know what? It's always nice to be the little spoon. I'm just going to say that. Like, it doesn't matter if you're big or you're small. Being a little spoon, you feel comforted. You feel comforted. It's just nice.
Yeah. Okay. Well, again, Jody, we hope you had a wonderful, wonderful birthday.
Before we wrap up, can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
Just want to give a shout out to our good friend Allison from the Who's There podcast. She just lost her cat, Playbill, and this cat was like her best friend and her sidekick. So we feel for you, Allison, and as someone who's gone through a lot of pet grief recently, because my cat also died. I don't know if I told you guys that on Saturday. So we feel for you, Allison, and we wish you the best. And if anybody doesn't know Allison and doesn't know her podcast, go check her out on Instagram. Who's There PC. It's a great podcast with interviews of horror fans. We've all horror fans, and she had Mike Flanagan on, for Christ's sake. And check her out. She does great interviews, and we've all been on the podcast. If you want to hear more about us, you can. I doubt you do, but you can check us out on there too. But show Allison some love this week, and we're thinking about you.
All right. Well, next week, I think we haven't decided exactly what we're going to do, but we have a couple more staff picks, and then I think we're going back to Creep Show starting November. So,
to our fans out there, if you guys have any suggestions, throw them our way.
Yeah, please.
Something fun and spooky. It's October.
Yeah, we'll definitely have some. Yeah, we'll bring out the good stuff. Don't worry. We appreciate everyone for listening. We'd really appreciate if you give us a rating and review on iTunes, a rating on Spotify, like and subscribe on YouTube, and you can follow us on TikTok at Dads from the Crypt Talk. With that, we thank you for listening to Dads from the Crypt.
Adios.
Follow Dads from the Crypt on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or I will follow you to the grave. No, seriously, you really should watch. But be careful what you ask for. You may get it.